Alright guys, we're gonna watch this video together and this way everybody can kind of see what I mean when I talk about doing some tape review. Alright, let's get started. So we're here. Now I want to highlight this first because this is kind of a deceptive thing when we think about our measure. And so my question is, what measure am I in? Because if we go off kind of the default way that we talk about things, right? I got kind of a gap between our swords. So we would initially say, well, it's probably more like Joka Largo, right? Because we would, in theory, have to take 3 steps. The problem with that, and this is me being kind of deceptive since I'm fencing Geoff, you see where my hand is? Very refused, right? So if I was to pivot and turn into Porta de Ferrostrata, this kind of gap right here would virtually disappear. And so that's one of the things you got to watch out for is that if somebody's in a very arm forward guard and you're in a refused guard, you're probably going to get in the measure before you plan on it, unless you've got a lot of practice at it. So let's keep going. Now here I've shuffled in a little bit, right? Just a small amount. And now I'm sort of getting into that Mezzospada position, right? So we'll see Geoff load his foot here. Now, typically when people get into this, they're either going to shuffle over, they'll shuffle this way, or as we're going to see Geoff do, he's going to do a bonus point to the person that they can tell me what this is, where he goes 1, 2. Boom. We have our hit, and we get out. So let's back it up. So we're here. I throw a half cut to Larga, followed by the falso dritto to the hand. So why was this safe in this position, or safer? Because I'm cutting down into an offline guard, right? Well, where's Geoff's feet? His feet's in that sort of super deep twisted position. Now, and this is difficult because we only have one view, if his foot line is there, that means that he's going to have to come all the way around to do a step forward, or he's going to have to lunge off that really weird position, right? And so it's safe in this instance for me to step in and take that shot. We have our initial, we reset. Now, this is where I'm even violating my own rules now, right? And this is part of Geoff's game because Geoff knows I like to play in that outer measure. And so he shortened it. So we go here, I shuffle back. Now here I just kind of fed in a very basic shot. So we're here. He's in that hanging position. I take in a deep lunge. Now, once again, even here, I was not close enough to hit. And so my plan, if I'm remembering correctly, was to try and bait out that shot and then me just wind over or do a mezzovolta to the position. And Geoff just beats me to it. So back here, good shot from Geoff, reset. You see me shuffle back because that was that sort of danger zone, right? 1, 2. Let's back it up. You guys have to bear with me some because I'm still learning this app too. So we have a push thrust cut. Now I've pushed in with my right. We see Geoff come over to the parry, and he immediately initiates that counter cut. So what could I have done better in this situation? Well, whenever I throw this trauma zone, see how I raise my hand up and I kind of leave it there? What I really should have done was push, thrust, cut, and return to my Porta de Ferro Strata guard, right? Because if my hand was in that position that it should have been, that would have meant that my sword was about there, and my cross would have been about there, and so I probably would have been safe. Let's continue. And reset. Back and cut along the strata. That got really kind of messy, but to kind of talk about what I was sort of setting up for, I immediately rise into that parry, and then I just didn't do anything with it. I had the parry, I had the tempo, and what I should have done is see how far back my left hand is, right here? Really, if you think about where my sword line should have been, is it should have been here, because if my left hand had shot in front of my sword, I could have hooked that sword and grabbed it. And unfortunately, I didn't. It gets kind of messy, and Geoff ends up getting one of his like running cuts to my gut. All right. And it was a good shot. So let's reset again. I've stepped in, and once again, see how close we are. Like, sure, my sword here isn't necessarily crossing, but if I was to actually uh, turn into Porta de Ferro Strata, my hand would probably be right about here, which would put my sword closer to that. And then if you think about the way Geoff's standing, he's really got that sword extended. So we're very close to Metz Espada.
I think I caught it on the guard side of the elbow.
So let's see what happened, because that was kind of confusing. So over here, so I have my flip. Geoff goes to parry it, right? And that's kind of the idea of that shot, is that we feint up high, flip, roll it back. I land that shot. Geoff still comes through and ends up connecting with me. Would it have been a stop cut? Maybe, but at the end of the day, what should have happened is that as I'm hitting this here, right, I start to step back in that very kind of counter-offensive style, when really I should have kept my sword down here and wound out with that Mezzavolta. Oh well, live and learn.
I think I caught it on the guard side of the elbow.
Geoff and I jacking around. Oh, we've been doing this together for quite a while. Now there, right? I just missed. Had I just shuffled in slightly more, that would have been a good shot. And that's one of the things that you run into is once people get really good measure control, it's just little games of inches. All right.
Which, ironically,
And actually, I want to point out something else, right? So, did I just stand here? Yeah. And he immediately threw that cut in. Imagine had as he initiated that cut, if I would have taken that foot and shot it that way, I probably would have just landed a thrust in its face. So I need to get better about picking that up.
which ironically, I because I jammed my fingers.
Everybody's familiar with that sequence. All right. So we're here. Oops, I'm in a narrow chingale. Right. I have my lazy cut. Now, one thing that I kind of harp on a lot is like staying behind her sword, right? See how as I'm moving forward, that sword gets in front of me? Let's say that my sword was here, but my foot was closer to out here. Well, by then, that's going to put my body more here already. See how narrow of a time that is to that hand? Because even then, my hand would be closer to here at that point. So just make sure you're stepping behind your swords. So let's slow it down even more. So we have our reverso. So Geoff, in this position, he should have lunged on me. Because had he lunged into that thrust, he probably would have just hit me. Now, I know Geoff doesn't tend to do that, and that's kind of an odd position to land that lunge. But I'm also already prepping my retreat, right? So we go through, we have the land, I throw that shot, hit, and then we just double. So that definitely wouldn't have been a stop cut. So let's continue. We reset, move back in our position. Let's back her up. So we're here. I thrust. See how far away I am? And this is kind of what I talked about when I'm talking about being as safe as we can with our provocations. So I provoke with a punto reversa, right? Because I was over in back here. So I'm in Cuddling Strata. Granted, I'm doing something kind of weird with my feet. See how my front foot's still straight, and then my back foot's kind of kicked off this way? Kind of a weird guard position. But I'm going to provoke with my punta reversa. Geoff goes to thrust counter, sort of thrust into the counter, and I'm already reset for my second shot, right? I see Geoff start to unwind into that deep cut. I shove back with my foot, take the shot at the hand, void out. So let's watch it one more time, super slow. Here we go. So we have the extension. Now I'm already extended before he's even moved. I'm already prepping for my follow-up, right? I'm now out of the way. I unwind, push back, hit, void. Nice clean shot. Mr. Bane's finger makes an appearance. Now this is actually kind of a good example again of me being lazy. I'm in a very narrow Kurlunga Larga guard. That's not to say that you're never in those, but why is it safe for me to do this here? Well, see where that is? In order for him to do anything to me, right, it's going to either have to flip around that way or flip around this way. One of the two. So over here, I provoke. Now, I purposely avoided that for a second because what you do see here is Geoff trick me because he shoots it straight left flip in his hand. So over here, let's slow it down. So I trauma zone down to Porta de Ferro Larga. Now I'm in danger here, like before we even get to the next step. Geoff's already initiated his movement. My sword is offline. Sure, I'm in a good enough position that that shot's going to come up, but I'm probably going to double in this position. So Geoff feints. He transitions into a cut. I transition into my rising cut, and we once again double.
Well, I don't know. No, yeah, I think no, I didn't have enough.
But I clearly didn't think I had enough. Point Geoff. All right, let's go again. Now, again, I that's something I got to work on is my guard because I am not in a good co-orchestrata guard. So something for me to correct on my own. So that's a sequence that you guys see me repeat a lot. There are ways to take advantage of it, right? So Coda Longa Stretta, provoke a Punta Reverso, down to Larga, followed by the Reverso to Coda Longa Stretta, eventually going down to Larga. So look for those habits. Like that is a habit that I have. Yes, there are there are traps in it, but start trying to pick up where those traps are because you know that a rising falso is coming. So something you could feasibly do is step in, punch, uh, that parry into Porta de Ferro Strata, and then follow it with a thrust. So we're here. I get kind of lackadaisical. Let's go and play to the next action.
Good, you. Go ahead.
Looks like Geoff got me at the end. We'll back her up. So we're here. So see how as I'm stepping, I'm still trying to keep that sword out in front of me. So we have our one. I missed the parry. Oh, gross. Yeah, gross. Had I landed that parry right here, I probably would have been okay. But then he gets that. Now, as I look at it, there's not a ton of movement on that. But with it being kind of a um, shot to the hand, by all means, I would see that. So that was a good shot by Geoff.
Good, you. Go ahead.
And we wrap up. So that's my thoughts on myself. Obviously I need to get my guard straightened out. Um, I need to work on the form and position of some of those attacks. And even in fencing Geoff, I got very, very heavy into the habit of 1-2 counters. And so, and when I say that, I mean provoke, immediately attack. And that wasn't provoke, or, provoke, parry, attack. So that was my own fault. Um, anyway, I'm gonna keep working on these, and once I get everyone's done, I'll mess